Most people don't lose money by selling too early. They lose it by staying too long for all the wrong reasons. Hope, ego, sunk cost, fear of being wrong. In the last episode, we talked about how to walk away when a situation breaks. Today is the other half of that equation. How to know when staying is the rational move, not an emotional one. And we're going to look at this through the same lens, actually the same four lenses again. Stocks, real estate, private equity, or business, and life. Because the rules don't change, only the context does. Here's the mistake that most people make. They think staying means believing harder, or ignoring discomfort, or doubling down on conviction. And that's not staying, that's clinging. Real staying is calm, it's quiet, it's boring, and most importantly, defensible. You don't stay because you want to be right. You stay because the original thesis still holds. So how do you test that objectively before emotion creeps in? Staying is only rational if three things remain true. Number one, your thesis is still intact. Number two, the risk is asymmetric. And number three, time is working for you, not against you. If any one of these breaks, staying starts drifting into emotion. And this is where people confuse conviction with stubbornness. You see, conviction is staying because your thesis is still valid. Stubbornness is staying because admitting you're wrong feels worse than the risk. Conviction is calm. It doesn't need defending. Stubbornness is reactive. It argues with reality in real time. And that distinction matters because one of them compounds over time and the other quietly destroys it. Let's apply this. Staying in a stock is rational when the business fundamentals haven't changed. The reason you entered still exists, and volatility is just noise. It's not signal. Because price moving against you does not mean that the thesis is broken. But here's the line most people miss. Staying is only rational if you defined what broken looks like before you entered. Rational staying looks like temporary earnings pressure, not structural decay. Consolidation inside a broader trend, or sentiment shifting faster than fundamentals. And remember, great businesses go on sale all the time. The question is whether you're buying the sale or catching a falling knife. Emotional staying sounds like, it has to bounce. I'll sell when I'm back to break even. Everyone else is wrong. Rational investors stay because nothing material changed. Emotional investors stay because selling feels like admitting failure. And real estate tests patience more than intelligence. You stay in a property rationally when cash flow is intact or improving, the location thesis hasn't changed, long-term demand drivers are still real. You don't sell a solid property just because interest rates rise, or the market is cooling, or appreciation pauses. That's noise. Staying becomes emotional if cash flow turns negative with no path back, if your capital expenditures quietly pile up, or you say it'll work itself out without a plan. Rational investors stay because the asset still earns its keep. Emotional investors stay because it feels like failure if you leave. In business, this is where sunk cost actually whispers the loudest. You stay rationally when the people are still right, the market still exists, and execution problems are solvable. You don't stay just because you're already invested time, you don't want to upset your partners, or walking away feels reputationally risky. Here's the cleanest test I know. You ask yourself, if this opportunity, this exact opportunity, came across your desk today with everything that you know now, would you still say yes? If the answer is yes, then staying is rational. If the answer is no, well, then you've already got your answer. Now, when it comes to life, this one's personal, but the point isn't about my career. It's more about the pattern. I once stayed in a job that was objectively good, right? Good boss, good people, pretty clear path forward. And for a long time, staying was the right decision. But slowly, something changed. Not emotionally, but structurally. The learning curve flattened, the problems became familiar, nothing new was being built. And I think this is where a lot of people struggle. Because as human beings, our brains are wired to seek novelty, to learn, to grow. And when that curiosity isn't being fed, even a good job can start to feel restrictive. Not because the employer's bad, not because the work is unfair, but because growth has slowed. And that's often where resentment shows up, right? People start blaming their employers when the real issue is just that the role no longer aligns with their need to learn and evolve. And yes, income still matters, stability still matters, but in my experience, fulfillment usually comes from progress, not comfort. And I'd been honest from the very beginning. I actually said during the interview, I probably have a shelf life here. I thought it was 3 years. I ended up staying for 5. Not because things went wrong, but because loyalty is easy to confuse with discipline. And I noticed that over time, the costs became clearer. More time away from home, more routine meetings, more repetition. So I asked myself a question I now use everywhere. If I removed loyalty, fear, and sunk cost, would I still choose this path today? And the answer wasn't dramatic. It was calm. And it was no. Not because the job failed, but because the thesis had quietly expired. And that's the thing about rational staying or leaving. The right decision rarely feels heroic. It just feels obvious in hindsight. Now, you don't walk away from life decisions just because they're hard, but you also don't stay just because you've invested years, maybe you're being rewarded, or leaving simply feels uncomfortable. Rational staying feels like forward motion. Emotional staying feels like maintenance. And when staying requires constant internal justification, that's usually the signal. So here's the filter I come back to. If I remove fear, ego, and sunk cost, does staying still make sense? If yes, then great, you stay patiently. But if the answer is no, Don't negotiate with yourself. Rational staying doesn't need daily justification, but emotional staying does. Walking away takes courage, but quietly staying when every emotion tells you to act takes just as much courage. And the difference isn't the decision, it's the clarity behind it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.